I never thought I'd be the guy posting something like this, but here I am, and honestly, I'm still trying to process everything. My name's Mark, and I've been with my wife, Lisa, for about 8 years now. We met in college, and I always thought we had a good thing going, fun, stable, no major drama, or so I believed. At first, it was little things. She'd be late for dinner or forget to text me back. Nothing unusual, really. I figured she was busy with work or her friends. But over the last few months, the signs started piling up. She became more cold, less interested in me, and I noticed her phone was always glued to her hand like she was hiding something. She'd get defensive when I asked about her whereabouts, and I caught her lying about where she was going with her friends once or twice. Still, I convinced myself she was just stressed or needed space. Then came the Christmas party at her company. I wasn't invited, which I thought was normal. Most of her coworkers were single, and she was always talking about how much she hated work parties because of the drunken antics and stupid games. Tell me, "Don't worry, Mark, I'll be home early and it's just a work thing, nothing to get jealous over." I trusted her, or at least I wanted to. Plus, I was busy with my own job trying to keep everything afloat, but I should have known better. I had a weird gut feeling that night, like something wasn't right. I was out of town on a work trip, but I still had access to some of the security cameras at her office because I'm a tech guy, and I used that to keep tabs on her sometimes. I remember sitting in my hotel room, scrolling through footage when I saw her arrive at the office party. Nothing unusual at first, just a bunch of people laughing and grabbing drinks. But then the camera angle shifted, and I saw her slip away from the crowd, heading into a side conference room. What struck me as odd was that she stayed in there for a long time. The footage was grainy, but I could see her leaning over a table, her head close to someone else. I froze it and zoomed in. I recognized the guy she was with immediately. It was Greg, her boss. They looked pretty cozy, honestly, and I saw their heads get closer, their bodies practically pressed together. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I saw enough. My stomach dropped. I felt like someone had punched me in the chest. I knew Greg was ambitious, always talking about his promotion, always trying to impress her with his cool ideas. But I never thought she'd actually cheat on me with him, let alone at a company Christmas party. Seeing her there, so close to him, laughing and touching his arm, made my blood boil. That moment was like a punch to my soul. I never imagined Lisa, my wife, would be capable of that kind of betrayal. I kept watching the footage, trying to understand what I was seeing, but I couldn't. My mind was racing, full of questions I knew I'd never get answers to from her. I remember feeling numb, like the ground had shifted under my feet. How long had this been going on? Were there more times? Did she ever intend to tell me, or was I just another guy she was pretending was special? The worst part was the realization that I was completely blindsided. She had lied about everything, about her feelings about us. I sat there, staring at the screen, feeling every emotion at once: anger, sadness, betrayal. I wanted to scream, to break something, but all I did was sit there, frozen. I had to keep calm, think about what to do next. My first instinct was to confront her right then and there, but I knew I needed to plan, to gather myself before I said anything. Still, every fiber in my body wanted to explode with rage. How could she do this? After all the years, all the promises, all the nights I stayed up worried about her. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach, and honestly, I still feel like I'm trying to breathe past it all. After I watched that footage, everything in my world shifted. I didn't sleep that night, not really. I kept replaying what I saw, trying to convince myself I was wrong or that maybe I had misinterpreted something. But deep down, I knew the truth. Lisa, my wife, the girl I had trusted with everything, was cheating on me with her boss, Greg. The mornings after were the worst. I kept pretending everything was normal, went to work, answered calls, but inside I felt numb. It was like I'd been hit by a freight train. Every time I looked at her, I saw her in that conference room, laughing with Greg, touching his arm, so comfortable, so intimate. I kept thinking about all the times she'd been distant, the little lies she'd told me, her sudden busy days that turned into hours of secret meetings or work dinners. Now I knew she wasn't just busy, she was screwing her boss. I decided I had to confront her, I couldn't keep pretending. So one evening I came home early from work, something I never do, and found her sitting on the couch, texting like she was hiding something. Her phone buzzed multiple times and I saw the name Greg pop up on the screen. I felt my heart tighten. I sat down across from her and just looked at her. She glanced up, her face a mask of annoyance, like I was bothering her. She tried to brush past it with her usual bitchy attitude. "What do you want, Mark? Can't you see I'm busy?" She snapped. I just looked at her and said, "Who's Greg, Lisa?" Her eyes widened for a split second, but she quickly recovered, trying to play it off. "What are you talking about?" she said, acting innocent. I pulled out my phone and played the footage right in front of her. Her face contorted into a mixture of shock and anger. She stammered, "That's not what it looks like. You're misinterpreting things. It's just a work thing, I swear. Greg's just helping me with a project." I stared at her, furious. "You think I'm stupid?" "I saw everything. You were in that conference room for a long time, Lisa. You're screwing him. How long has this been going on? Do you even care how much you hurt me?" Her lies started pouring out. She said it was just a fling, that she didn't mean for it to get so out of control. She told me she was stressed, that she was overwhelmed with her job, that Greg was just helping her with her career, that it meant nothing. But I knew better. I could see in her eyes she was lying through her teeth. She looked so bitchy then, so dismissive, like I was supposed to just accept her explanation and move on. It made me sick. I felt like my entire life had been a lie. I wanted to scream, to hit something, but I just sat there feeling the cold weight of betrayal. The woman I had loved, the woman I married, was sleeping with her boss. Someone she constantly told me was just a friend, and who, I now knew, was also her boss. That's when I realized the level of her condescension. She thought she could lie her way out of it, like I was too stupid to see through her bullshit. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the signs I'd ignored, the late nights, the secret calls, her dismissive attitude when I asked questions. Now I knew she'd been lying to me from the start. My mind was racing with thoughts of revenge, of ending it all, of confronting her again, but I knew I needed a plan. I couldn't just blow up everything without thinking. In the days that followed, I started gathering more evidence. I got access to her texts, her emails, things I could use if I decided to call her out publicly or if I wanted to break her down. I also started thinking about what I really wanted. Was I going to try to save this marriage? Was there a way back from this? Or was it better just to cut my losses and walk away? Honestly, I was leaning toward the latter, but I wasn't sure yet. All I knew was that I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I was angry, hurt, and betrayed, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I'd been blind for too long, and now I could see how little she cared about me or our marriage. That realization was like a slap in the face. I thought about all the nights I spent wondering if she loved me, if I was enough. Turns out she had been with him the whole time, laughing at me behind my back. And that made me realize I'd been a fool. But now I was determined to do something about it. I just didn't know what yet. Over the next few days, I found myself oscillating between anger and despair. I couldn't eat, couldn't concentrate at work, and every time I looked at her, I saw the betrayal written all over her face, her dismissive sneer, her bitchy attitude whenever I questioned her. It was like she thought she was untouchable, like she could lie her way out of any consequences. The more I analyzed her behavior, the more I saw her true character: manipulative, selfish, and utterly contemptuous of my feelings. I started plotting my revenge, not in some reckless way, more calculated. I didn't want to blow everything up immediately. I wanted her to see what it felt like to be caught, to be exposed, the way she'd exposed me. I'd spend the next few days gathering undeniable proof, more footage, more messages, exact details of her affair. I wanted her to understand that I knew everything, that she couldn't lie her way out of this. But I also needed to think about what I was going to say. I knew I couldn't just confront her with a simple, "I know you're cheating." No, I needed something more final, more cruel. I wanted to strip her of her sense of control, of her ability to manipulate me. I wanted her to realize that her actions had consequences, that I wasn't some pushover anymore. One night, I came home early again, thinking I'd catch her in the act or maybe find her phone. But she was just sitting on the couch, flipping through her social media, pretending everything was normal. I kept my composure, but inside I was boiling. I sat across from her and said calmly, "Lisa, I know about Greg. I've seen the footage, the texts, everything. And I want to know, how long has this been going on? When did you decide I wasn't enough?" Her face twitched like she was caught off guard, but then she recovered her bitchy attitude. "You're overreacting," she snapped. "It's not what you think, you're just paranoid. I don't know what footage you're talking about, but you're imagining things." I almost lost it. How could she lie so blatantly? I put my phone on the table, showing her the damning evidence. She looked at it, her eyes narrowing, then she scoffed. "That's not proof. You're making a big deal out of nothing, like always." I felt my blood pressure spike. "Nothing, nothing. Look at this footage, Lisa. You're in the conference room with him, touching his arm, leaning in like you're giving him a blowjob. How much clearer do I need it? You've been screwing him for months, haven't you?" Her jaw clenched and she shot back. "That's none of your business. I do what I want. If you're so miserable, maybe you should leave." I realized then that she was trying to turn it around, make me feel guilty, like I'd done something wrong. But I didn't care anymore. I just stared at her, feeling cold and distant. She was so full of herself, so dismissive of what she'd done, like she thought she was untouchable. That's when I knew I had to do something drastic. I couldn't just let her walk all over me anymore. I started making calls, gathering more evidence, planning my next move. I wanted her to feel the same pain I felt: humiliated, exposed, betrayed. I wanted to make sure she knew I wasn't going to be some doormat anymore. I also realized I needed to prepare myself emotionally. This was going to be a shock for her, but more so for me. I'd been a fool for trusting her, for loving her blindly. Now, I was trying to find a way to break free from the mess she'd created. The hardest part was knowing I still loved her, or at least I thought I did. I kept asking myself if I should forgive her, if there's any way to rebuild what we had. But every time I looked at her bitchy, dismissive face, I felt that little voice inside me, the one that said enough is enough. I couldn't keep living like this, pretending everything was fine when I knew damn well she was out there with him, sharing her body and her lies. The next step was clear, but it wasn't going to be easy. I had to decide whether I was going to confront her again, or if I was done trying to salvage something that was already dead. All I knew was that I was sick of being taken for granted, and I was sick of her bullshit. I needed to get out of this toxic situation, even if it meant destroying everything first. That's what revenge felt like, an act of reclaiming some ounce of dignity after being humiliated. And honestly, I was ready for that. That night, after I gathered enough evidence and cooled down a little, I knew I couldn't hold back anymore. I had played nice, tried to be patient, but she was pushing me to the edge. I decided I'd confront her again, but this time I'd be direct, harsh, and unrelenting. I wanted her to feel the full weight of what she'd done, to see how much her lies and betrayal had shattered me. I wasn't going to let her manipulate her way out of this, not anymore. When she came home that evening, I was waiting for her in the living room. She looked annoyed, like I was bothering her once again. She kept brushing past me, trying to act like everything was normal, but I wasn't having it. I blocked her way and looked her straight in the eyes. "Lisa, I've had enough of your shit," I said coldly. "I know what you've been doing and I want to hear it from your mouth. Did you sleep with Greg?" Her face twisted into a venomous sneer and she spat. "You're psycho. I don't owe you an explanation. You're just jealous because I don't want some boring husband like you. Greg's just a friend, and you're just angry because I don't want to be your little housewife anymore." That was her typical bullshit, trying to turn it around, make herself look like the victim and me the crazy husband, but I wasn't buying it. I threw the evidence in her face, screenshots of the texts, the footage, the flirty messages she'd sent him. Her eyes widened again, realizing that I wasn't bluffing. "You think I care about your pathetic excuses?" I said, barely keeping my voice steady. "You've been screwing him at work behind my back for months. How could you be so shitty? Do you even have a conscience? Or are you just a bitch who thinks she can get away with anything?" She responded with more lies, more false bravado. "You're overreacting. It's not what you think. Greg's just helping me out because I asked him, and maybe you should look at yourself. You're so insecure, so jealous that you're imagining things. Maybe you're the one who's unfaithful, huh?" That was the last straw. I felt a surge of rage mixed with heartbreak. I realized I'd been a fool for loving her so blindly. How had I missed all the signs? How had I let her treat me like this? I told her, I don't want a liar. Like you, I don't want a cheating wife who thinks she's better than me. If you think you can lie your way out of this, you're dead wrong. I told her to pack her things. I didn't want her in my house anymore. She threw a tantrum, yelling, crying, calling me crazy, but I just stood there, exhausted. I knew I had to do what I should have done a long time ago, cut her out of my life. Not just for my dignity, but because she had proven she didn't care about us at all. The aftermath was a blur. She left the next day, yelling that I was overreacting, that I was ruining everything, but I didn't care. The house felt emptier than ever. I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. Relief because I finally saw her for what she was, selfish, manipulative, a liar. Sad because I had loved her once and now I was alone, betrayed in the worst way possible. In the weeks that followed, I threw myself into work, trying to forget her, but every time I was alone, her face haunted me. I kept asking myself how I'd let her get away this for so long, how I'd been blind to her bitchy attitude, her lies, her manipulations. I realized I'd been a fool for so long, thinking that love could fix everything. But love isn't enough when the person you love is so willing to throw you away for some fleeting sex and ambition. Now I see clearly. I learned some hard lessons about trust, about reading the signs, and about standing up for myself before it's too late. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know I won't be taken for granted again. If there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, it's this. No matter how much you love someone, don't ignore the red flags. If they cheat and lie and treat you like dirt, don't try to fix it, cut it out. Because at the end of the day, you're worth so much more than being someone's doormat. The aftermath of her leaving hit me harder than I expected. I thought I'd feel relief, maybe even liberation, but instead, I was flooded with a mix of sadness and anger I couldn't completely shake. The silence in the house was deafening. Every room reminded me of her, her bitchy attitude, her lies, the way she used to sneer and dismiss me. For days, I couldn't sleep properly. My mind kept circling back to that footage, her face, Greg's smug smile, and the realization that I'd been nothing more than a fool. I kept replaying the moments before she left, trying to figure out if I could have done something differently, or if this was always going to happen. The truth was brutal. She never really loved me. All those years I spent trying to make her happy, trying to believe her lies had been wasted. She was just using me, pretending to be the wife I thought I knew. That realization felt like a punch to the gut every time I thought about it. I also started reflecting on the emotional toll this had taken on me. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and incredibly stupid for not seeing the signs sooner, for letting her belittle me, for believing her bullshit. I'd built my whole life around her, and now I was left with nothing but an emptiness I didn't know how to fill. I began questioning everything about myself, my worth, my judgment, my future. In trying to find some sense of control, I decided to take some time off work. I needed to clear my head, get away from the chaos, and think about what I really wanted moving forward. I started seeing a therapist, not just to cope with the betrayal, but to rebuild my confidence. I didn't want to be a victim of this anymore. I wanted to be stronger, smarter, more aware. Part of me still felt a flicker of hope that I could move past her, that I could find happiness on my own. But mostly I just felt numb. The most surprising part was the way my friends reacted. I'd always been the guy who kept his feelings to himself, who didn't complain or vent much. But when I finally opened up about what had happened, it was like a dam broke. They were furious for me, telling me I deserved better, that I shouldn't waste another second on someone like her. That gave me some comfort, knowing I wasn't alone in this. I realized how many people out there had gone through the same thing and somehow managed to pick up the pieces. It took weeks, but slowly, I started reclaiming my life. I stopped obsessing over what she did, over what I could have done differently. I focused on myself, on fixing what was broken inside. I got back into fitness, started picking up old hobbies I'd abandoned, and more importantly, I began to believe that I could be happy without her. It's funny how, after betrayal, the mind finds ways to adapt, to heal, even if it's one tiny step at a time. I'd be lying if I said I didn't still think about her sometimes. Her bitchy attitude, her lies, the way she dismissed the love I gave her. But those thoughts are becoming less frequent, replaced by a resolve to move on. I know I'll never forget what she did, but I also realize that holding onto that pain only keeps me tied to the past. I have to let go if I want a future. Looking back now, I see how much I've changed. The naive trust, the blind love, all of it got me into this mess. But I've learned something valuable. Never ignore the red flags. Never let someone treat you like they're entitled to your love without giving anything back. And most importantly, never sacrifice your dignity for someone who clearly doesn't deserve it. So, to anyone reading this who's going through something similar, trust your gut. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them. Don't keep making excuses or thinking you can fix things. Because if they cheat, lie, and treat you like dirt, your best move is to walk away before they destroy everything you've built. You're worth more than that. Always remember that. Now, sitting here months later, I can honestly say I'm in a better place than I was when I first discovered her cheating. It was one of the hardest experiences of my life, seeing the woman I loved turn into someone I barely recognized, someone who lied and sneered at me like I was nothing. But I also realized that I deserved better. I deserved someone who valued me, who wouldn't cheat behind my back, who wouldn't lie and manipulate their way out of the truth. Getting through the pain took time, but I learned to accept what had happened, not as a reflection of my worth, but as a lesson I won't forget. I've become more cautious, more aware of the signs I used to ignore, and more committed to respecting myself. I've also learned that revenge, as tempting as it was for a while, doesn't bring peace. Only time and self-respect do that. Looking at everything now, I realize that her betrayal was more a reflection of her character than mine. The bitchy attitude, the lying, the dismissiveness. She's the one who lost her integrity, not me. I don't hold anger anymore. Instead, I hold a quiet sense of freedom. Freedom from someone who only brought me pain. I've started dating again, cautiously, but with the knowledge that I won't settle for less. I'm rebuilding my confidence, my trust in myself, and my belief that there's someone out there who can love me for who I am, without lies, betrayal, or bullshit. I know I'll be okay, even if the scars of her betrayal will stay with me for a while. To those out there going through something similar, I want to say this: don't let betrayal define you. Don't let it turn you into someone bitter, but let it teach you to love yourself more. Trust is a fragile thing, and when it's broken, it's painful, so be careful who you trust. And if someone cheats or lies or treats you like you're nothing, don't be afraid to walk away. You're worth so much more than that, and the right person will come along eventually. Someone who respects you, truly values you, and never, ever takes you for granted. I've learned my lesson the hard way. I hope you don't have to. But if you do, remember, it's not the end. It's just the beginning of a new, stronger version of yourself. One who knows what they deserve and isn't afraid to walk away from anything that doesn't serve their happiness. Because at the end of the day, no one should settle for being lied to, cheated on, or disrespected. Not me, not you. We're better off without that kind of poison in our lives.